In this video, we'll be optimizing your dopamine. Now, this is a very important video, so please watch the whole thing. So what is dopamine and why is it so important? Well, people call it the motivation molecule. If you have optimal amounts of it, you feel motivated, driven, focused. You seem to do the right things at the right time. If you're deficient in it, you can experience apathy, laziness, kind of ADD, distracted, can't focus, can't sit down, can't watch these videos, and you have to check your phone 5 times in between. It is a problem, and let me explain why. Every time you do something good for your survival, right, some dopamine gets released. It's that reward chemical. It's what makes you feel good. So whenever you eat, you get a little bit of dopamine. When you exercise, you get some of it. You complete a task, you have sex, you play a video game, all these things you do, you get that good feeling, that reward. That is dopamine. There's a new post, new message, you get a little bit of dopamine in there. I mean, this was designed with addiction in mind. People, that own these platforms want you to get addicted to these devices because they can run more ads to you. The more ads they run to you, the more money they make. So it was designed with addiction in mind. Same thing with the smartphone. The more you use it, the more they're going to make money. So you got to keep that in mind. Junk foods, foods that have excessive refined sugar added to it that's not supposed to be there. Way too much fat, and especially if you combine those two, you get all sorts of crazy dopamine and insulin spikes. And of course, it feels good in the moment, but it's, number one, very unnatural, and it has a consequence on its own. And of course, if you keep eating like that, you'll get fat. Porn, another big problem. Drugs. This is why people get addicted to drugs. They get 10 times the dopamine they're naturally supposed to, because the drug kind of synthetically releases it. And then regular life stops becoming interesting. Things that would give you pleasure no longer do the thing. And the only thing that can give you that reward is the drug. And that's why people get addicted. So here's the problem. When you constantly flood your brain with excessive, unnatural, synthetic dopamine, eventually it gets desensitized. Think about it. You almost build like a tolerance, and you need more and more of it to feel the same reward. Right? You need more and more sugar to feel the same reward. You need to check your phone more and more often to feel the same reward. You need to take more of the drug, more of the caffeine, more of the smoking, more of the porn. You name it, you need more and more of it, because now these dopamine receptors in your brain get numbed, get desensitized, they die off. Now you need more and more to get the same feeling. That's one part of the problem. The other part, the human brain naturally tends to take the easiest, quickest path to the most amount of dopamine. Because remember, this was like 2 million years ago designed as the reward chemical to, reward all the things that would help your survival. Eating so you don't die, procreation so your species don't die, all these different things. But now it's kind of being misused a little bit, and here's why. The question is, why work hard, right? Why eat clean? Why exercise? Why meditate? Why do all these good things that are good for you when you can get that same reward, or actually a lot more, with a click of a button, right? Here's the thing. Sitting down and watching this course without looking at interruptions, without looking at your phone, requires, a level of effort, a level of focus. And when you do, you're going to feel a bit accomplished. There's a little bit of natural dopamine that gets released. But if you may notice, a lot of people struggle with that. Some of you probably already checked your phone twice, and I'm just a few minutes into this video, right? And that's because our brains are addicted to these dopamine triggers in the world. We were evolved to go after the dopamine, but the question again is, why would you dedicate 20 minutes of your time to meditate and then feel some reward, feel some dopamine after it, when frankly you can go on your laptop, your phone, with 2 clicks of a button, get access, for example, to unlimited porn that floods you with way more dopamine than the meditation will. And people keep training their brains. It keeps getting reinforced that addiction's made. And now, why would they exercise? Why would they reach for that green juice when, they can just get that burger instead? That'll give them way more dopamine. So this is the problem, is that humanity is getting hooked on unnatural amounts of dopamine from these things that were designed to be addictive. Let me make it very clear. Porn, sugary junk food, social media, your phones, shopping, all of these things were meant to create that dopamine. So this is the reason why a lot of people struggle with work ethic, with the ability to just sit down and focus. And chances are, with the much needed ability to go through this course and actually do the work, right? Because if you watch the videos previously, you know that this course is kind of like a treadmill. I mean, look, it's a beautiful treadmill, but if you don't use it consistently, if you don't put in the work, not going to work for you. So you need that dopamine, right, to be able to watch the course and implement it and then get those rewards that come from it. But here's the problem. If you're addicted to all these hooks, it'll be hard, but there's a way out of it. So that's why we're going to optimize your dopamine. And how you do it is you're going to want to make a list of things where you may be wasting that good old dopamine. A big one, especially for men, porn masturbation gets, this is such a primal thing. And I know it's kind of weird that I'm talking about this, but it has to be addressed because nowadays there's groups of people online that are going on the no fap, no masturbation challenge, etc. And if they just do it for a couple weeks, they see an immense surge in motivation and energy. So have I myself when I tried this before. So there's a reason behind that, right? Because these things naturally flood you with way too much dopamine. When you take it away, you give your brain the ability to go back to normal, to go back to homeostasis. And when you let it happen, now simple things such as going to exercise, such as completing a task, such as eating a healthy meal will give you that big amount of dopamine that it's normally supposed to, but maybe it looks small in comparison to these bad habits if you're hooked on them, right? If someone's into drugs, drinking, smoking, that has to go because, again, how are you supposed to direct that motivation within you to do the right thing, to watch the course, to implement the actions if all the dopamine is being released in those other things? They'll automatically take your brain in that direction. And it may feel good in the moment, but it's not taking you where you want to be in life. Another big one, social media. I personally use social media for business. I have it blocked for a vast majority of the day, and I only check it rarely. I do check it very rarely because it really hooks you with that dopamine trigger. Each time you get a notification, boom, dopamine, right? Each time your phone buzzes, gets a text, whatever, boom, dopamine. So you have to take control of this because this is exactly why ADD, ADHD, and all these crazy things are through the charts in America and around the world because this society that we live in is training us to be these dopamine addicted zombies craving our quick fix. And the problem is if you go for the quick fix, then you're much less likely to put in the actual amount of effort required to, for example, go through a course like this, really implement it and get the results. Because why would you? I'm like really talking to your brain. Why would you want to put in a bunch of effort and time to get a result, to get that reward? Because that's really what you're after, that dopamine, when you can just do these things and get the same amount, if not more. Right? Gambling, gaming, excess sugar and diets, all sorts of addictions, from shopping addiction to sex addiction to, you name it, make a list. And these are some of the things you want to look at. Now, when you also make the list, you can look at this habit loop over here. There's always a cue. So if I'm looking at it this way, there's always a cue, right? There's something that you notice in your environment that triggers you, or that's really another good word for it, that triggers you like, oh, it's time to do this. Maybe it's a feeling of anxiety or depression cues, time for the drink or whatever that may be. Or maybe, it is seeing a specific type of person that makes you feel agitated, whatever that may be. That triggers the routine, the thing that you're doing, the addiction itself, and boom, here's that dopamine. And this is why these negative habits, these addictions have to go, because otherwise it'll be very hard to actually follow through in a course and do what's required to succeed with it. So all you want to do is simply replace them. I mean, if you're looking at porn, drugs, addiction, smoking, etc., it's a very good idea to replace it with exercise. It's such a good cornerstone habit because it'll give you those natural, quote unquote, drugs. It'll give you those natural endorphins and dopamine and all this good stuff you get from it. Increases blood flow to the brain, makes you feel really nice, releases anxiety. So if you're going to be addicted to something, be addicted to exercise because it's actually good for you and it feels, and it's a reward that makes sense instead of all these different things over here. Let's look at social media. You know, if you have to use it, maybe set an hour a day. But I personally, I got it blocked. I check it very rarely, and I try to replace it with other things, watching a documentary that like is educational, or maybe reading a book instead. And then taking a look at the sugar, right? Once you start cutting out the excess sugar, which you also kind of build that tolerance up to, regular stuff, real healthy food that doesn't have the added sugar will start to taste really good again, because your brain goes back to homeostasis, to how it's naturally meant to be. I mean, all these things I listed, you know, exercise or doing real good work or focusing, all these different things should feel really good. There's dopamine always released, but it may not feel as good as it's really supposed to, because all the dopamine is being dispersed over here. So that's the whole message of this video, is if you really want to unlock that ability, that motivation, that focus, that drive to run through this course and implement it and actually get real amazing results, you're going to have to take control of your dopamine. Make a list of all the places you're wasting it, where you're giving yourself rewards without responsibility, and then taking this list and actually flipping them into better alternatives, better habits, kind of like I mentioned a handful over here. And look, this is not about giving up all the pleasures in life, not at all, but it's rather about reconditioning yourself to reward yourself with natural, useful sources of dopamine, because that'll make you a better person and your life better as well. Hope this video helps and makes sense. If you have any questions about it, post it in the group, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, the good news, there's actually a lot more like where this came from. This video was actually taken from within the Source Hacker system. This is kind of like my premium program that has dozens and dozens of videos more like this across 6 weeks, essentially teaching people how to get rid of the bad stuff from their lives, the self-destructive patterns, self-sabotage, bad habits, addictions, and how to create a life they love by really getting their life together, achieving their goals, and maxing out their health, wealth, love, and happiness. It's the best stuff I got from over the last 11 years, and having invested over 300,000 in different mentors, masterminds, you name it. So hey, if you're interested, just click the link below or the link on the video to check it out. Bye-bye.